everyone. So I have gone into hermit mode again, and during this time in hermit mode I have had so many revelations that I want to share with you all. It's just crazy the amount of downloads and things that have been coming in. So as many of you know, what I do on my channel a lot of the time is channel with the collective consciousness. So what that means is I will be channeling emotions, ideas, thought forms that are going on in the collective consciousness, and I will either be channeling that from outside and from going within, or I will actually be looking at information from sources like, you know, YouTube, books, Facebook, all that sort of stuff. And I will be looking at these perceptions of different people. And then from the information they've shared or their perception on the information, there will be like a network of different perceptions on that information that could be a possibility that go through my head. Okay, so this is why I often go into hermit mode, because I am constantly picking up on the collective consciousness and highly empathic. So when I am picking up on these emotions, thought forms, ideas, perceptions, it's not like it's just in my mind. I will often actually experience what it would be like to be living from that belief or perception in my life. And so if there are programs in the collective consciousness that are not serving us and are moving us more towards, you know, hatred and division than love and unity, I will like experience those programs through myself and deprogram them. So an example of this that I can give is I recently did a video on the big thing going on in the collective consciousness at the moment, which is the battle between religion and spirituality. And so because that's been going on in the collective consciousness, it's also been going on within myself. So it's almost like I take the information from outside within the collective consciousness and then sort of experience it from within and alchemize it, heal it, and transform it through myself. So if you've been watching my channel from the start up until now, you will probably see lots of changes and transformations happening with me and my beliefs, and questioning. I question everything as well. And this has helped me on my journey immensely, being able to empathize with all of these different beliefs and perceptions and see how they can come to be and what's really behind them and what's the deeper truths behind them. And that has helped me on my journey. It's helped me share messages and perceptions that can help others, and it's helped me help others by empathizing with them. And that's the positive side of it. But the negative side that happened was I kind of lost myself and my own perceptions, because I was being like a conduit for all of collective consciousness and every thought, every belief, every perception. And it gets quite overwhelming. And if you're not careful and discerning and going within, you can kind of lose yourself in it as well, which is what began to happen to me. Along with all of that, I'm not just tuning in to what's going on within the collective consciousness at the moment, but also have, you know, my own traumas, my own shadows, my own beliefs, my own perceptions, my own programming that needs to be healed. And in my case, I believe a lot of the programming in me that needs to be healed actually comes from past lives, because I didn't actually grow up religious in this life, but I seem to have carried over fear from religion, fear of going to hell, fear of being evil, you know, fear of what I'm teaching being wrong, fear of myself, doubt in myself, shame. You know, I seem to have carried that over from past lives. So as well as carrying that over from within myself and having to heal all of that, there's then everything in the collective consciousness going on as well, which you could also say, you know, as within, so without. It's also a reflection of myself, just as I am also a reflection, you know, for someone else. It goes two ways. So if you've been watching my journey from start to finish, you've been watching me heal myself, grow, evolve, transform, but also get to this point where I've deprogrammed myself from that fear, and I'm fully stepping into who I am. Because when I got lost in all of this collective consciousness and kind of lost myself in it a little bit, I went within, and the question I asked myself was, well, who am I? Who am I? And, you know, what I know that my channel very much has been about growth and transformation spiritually, but I just felt within that there's something else that it should be about. And I think that's something else I was fearing because of my programming. And so I started going within, and I kept asking, who am I? And am I meant to help everyone in the collective consciousness, you know, by trying to analyze and see the deeper truths in all of the beliefs? Or am I trying to help certain people? And if I'm trying to help certain people, then who are those people? You know, so I had questions, and so I went within with these questions. I think, who am I, is a question that so many of us are asking ourselves right now, because of all the deceit and lies and manipulation around us, and we just know there's something more. So what then happened was, often I will get downloads, profound realizations and clarity at night, because, you know, the world is quiet, your mind is quiet. And for a while now, I've been working with my ancestors. So previously it was like my spirit team, which I've done some videos on my spirit team, Sophia and Hecate being the main two. And then as I grew and evolved and was starting to remember bits and pieces of who I was more fully, and remember that I was connected with everyone, then the ancestors came into it. And so what happened to me at night was, I felt my ancestors with me. I knew they were with me. And what they said to me is, if you want to find out who you are, then you need to research who the healers, the wise men, and the wise women really were, who the witches were, because that's who you are. And you need to bring that information forward so people know who they really were, because of the fact that they've been demonized, and who they're being said to be is not who they really are. And they even said to me, you probably shouldn't be calling yourself a witch, because that's the term that was used to demonize these people. You should be calling yourself a wise woman. And this resonated with my soul, not my ego, okay? My ego doesn't really want to believe any of this stuff is true, because my ego wants to hold on to fear of myself, right? And fear of things. And I've done talking about ego before and how it's not a bad thing. We need it to have an individual sense of self. So if you lose it completely, it's not good. Like I just explained, you kind of get caught up in all the perceptions, beliefs, and who everyone else is, right? But the negative side of it is the fear, and that's the programming, you know, of the matrix, which I feel I've finally escaped because I've done all of this deprogramming, which if you've been with me from start to finish, you've seen that whole journey, which is great. But anyway, so back to that. So that resonated with my soul as to who I am. And I knew that if I went down this path of not just channeling information or knowing information within myself or the spiritual experiences that I've had, but also of researching who these people were, that's the path I'm supposed to go down. And I say to you, it resonated at a soul level, and there's a difference between that and just the ego or what you want to hear. So there was another question I had though, because I've been having this battle between spirituality and religion, because I do believe in Jesus. I do believe in his teachings. And I think many of us, including myself, are being called more and more to try and understand him, to understand who he is. And the funny thing is, when I tell you about like this full journey, it not only is leading to who I am, but who Jesus is. So that's really crazy, because it's like everything leads back to Jesus Christ that I look at. And, you know, I don't want you guys thinking I'm religious, because there's a lot of problems that I have with religion. And, you know, I've done videos telling you that I believe Jesus Christ was speaking of a different God. But everything is always leading back to him, not just for me, but in the collective consciousness at the moment as well. And there's people that are researching ancient teachings and realize perhaps he studied there and things like that, you know? So anyway, my ancestors were like, you're going to get answers for all of your questions if you go down this track. So I was like, well, where do I start for my ancestors? And I did like an ancestry tree a little while back, and it seemed like it was going towards the Celtic people as being my ancestry. So I was like, well, I'm going to start there. Just a little bit of a, interval before I continue on with that story. I also, the programming of the Matrix was making me be afraid of fully stepping into this, because I had this thing in my head where I was like, well, I can't represent Jesus Christ and be what they would call a witch, but I would call a wise woman now. I can't be that and represent him. I can't be that and believe in parts of religion, because, you know, religion says it's evil. And so that was a big part of the deprogramming that I had to do within myself as well, because where you see this story lead will show you that Jesus was actually a representative of the wise men and wise women. Right, so I start with the Celtics, and I got a thought that said Celtic cross. So it was like, I knew that was the first place I should look in, because you'll notice with me, my path is a mixture of intuition, my own experiences, and researching. And it's my intuition and my psychic abilities that lead to me like what to research, what to look at. And so the Celtic cross was what I got in my head. And so I looked that up, and that was really interesting because there was information on the fact that Celtics might have been Christian, right? And the explanation for that was that one of the saints come over and was, you know, preaching and evangelizing Christianity to the Celtic people. But there's arguments with that the cross was not a representative of Christianity, but actually representative of their pagan beliefs, because it represented the elements and the sun, and there was just lots of different things that I was researching that it said that it could have represented with. So it wasn't universally agreed that it was a Christian symbol. After that, I got the word Druid in my head. And so then I started looking into them. And on this journey, I've also been told by my ancestors, as well as my inner knowing, that I have to be open to the fact that, you know, maybe I might find that some of them weren't the nicest people, you know, but it doesn't, in my opinion, my question is, who am I? Who was Jesus Christ? And I'm open to whatever that can be. I just want the truth, like many of you, right? And so what I did find was that Druids, you know, they practiced sacrifice. But what I did find was that a lot of this writing was from Romans. And Romans had a bias towards Druids at the time because they were trying to put their religion upon the world and they were trying to rule. Now, there was actually archaeological evidence that I had a look at that was found that could suggest they were practicing sacrifice as well. So I'm open to the fact that that's a possibility. But I've also read the Bible, and I also know that that was practiced in the Roman religion as well, right? And that Yahweh asked for sacrifices. So I wasn't fully convinced that this was all there was to the Druids, though. Like, they're just horrible people that are sacrificing, and, you know, it's just like, it's never that black and white. There's always grey. There's always more information. There's always, you know, it's more complicated than what we know usually. So I said to myself, I'm not really happy with this answer. Like, not happy as in I want it to be different, but I was like, I just don't think it's the full truth. You know, within me, my intuition was saying to me, I just don't think it's the full truth. And what I said to myself within was like, it would be great if I could find an actual Druid, like an actual person who actually knows what they're all about. And in my searching, I come across a man from 6 years ago, and his name is Ben Mcbrady, and he was one of the last Druids of the old Gaelic order, and he was speaking on what he knew as a Druid, knowledge that had been passed down to him from ancient times. And what's important to note about this man is that it was evident to me that he didn't have anything to gain from what he was sharing. So I felt in my soul that he was genuine, because when you see his house and the way he's living, it's very humble. You know, he's not sharing all of this information and, you know, asking to live in mansions and for hundreds of dollars. And it just was evident to me that he was probably a trustworthy source, because he didn't seem to be gaining anything from what he was saying. He seemed to be wanting us to gain something. And I'm going to put a link to that video in my description so you can watch for yourself and see all of the information that he has to give. Because if I were to try and give all of the information that he gave that I found, this would be a very, 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 very long video. But there's a couple of points that I will say to you. And what I will say to you is that everything he said is things that I've known within me since I was a little girl. And that confirmed to me that I do think this has something to do with my ancestry or past lives. That confirmed to me who I am. And one thing he does talk about is that Jesus might have learnt with the Druids. All right, so you see how it led back to Jesus Christ again, and we are all wanting to know him fully. We're not just wanting to hear his name and use his name and that be enough. We are wanting to know him fully. We are wanting to know the missing pieces of our lives, of his lives, sorry. In my opinion, this is the return of Christ. Us remembering ourselves and trying to know and remember who he was. So it's really interesting that he says that Jesus might have studied with them, because you're also seeing Hindu say that he could have studied there, like in India. Aaron Abke talks about the Essenes and studying there. And so I had the thought, and I'm not saying whether this is, I don't know whether this is true or not, you know, but it feels true to me. It feels like my truth. I had the thought that perhaps it wasn't the saint that spread Christianity to the Celtics, but it was Jesus himself, because this man, Ben Mcbrady, also talks about the fact that there was a pure Christianity, a true Christianity, before the Romans took over it and altered it for their own gain. And so it's also led me to realize that yes, I can be a representative for Jesus Christ and be who I am and follow my practices at the same time, because I think he was a lot closer to that than he was to the Roman religion. And that's what I think we're all coming to realize at this time. And I now know that getting to the bottom of who these wise men and women were, so the Druids, you know, the Egyptians, like just the shamans, like all of the people that would be considered witches or, you know, were condemned in the Bible, I think these are the people who, surprisingly, are actually going to lead us to further knowing who Jesus Christ is, because I've read the Bible and I feel like I've gotten all I can from that, and it's time to start exploring these people. Not only that, but they've been so demonized, and I truly believe they were actually the healers of this earth, especially from what Ben Mcbrady says as well, and their actual practices and their actual beliefs. And you got to ask yourself, why have they been demonized so much? Why were they the ones that were gone after so much? And in my opinion, it's because they were the ones telling the truth. Because you'll realize when you're disconnected from nature, you're also disconnected from the divine, disconnected from yourself. And I've had this experience myself, because as a little girl, I came in knowing all of this. I came in giving offerings to fairies, believing in nature spirits, you know, knowing how divine Mother Earth is, and that there was divine in everything, and that magic was real. I came in knowing that. Obviously, I was programmed out of it, like a lot of people. I want you to focus in, who am I? Focus on that question on your journey of this life, because I think who am I also leads us to who Jesus Christ is. And what's funny about the question, who am I, is that when God in the Bible was asked what his name is, he said, I am. And so if you're asking that who am I question, you're going to find out the I am, which I think is going to give us the answers, focusing more inwards. Of course, there's information from the outside as well, but you will see that as you focus inwards, that information will start presenting itself to you outside. Because one example I can give to you is, since having this realization, I took my son to get assessed for neurodivergence or any learning disabilities. And as I took him to get assessed, the building across from me was called Druid dancing. And, you know, some words, some numbers you can put down to just being a common thing until you've experienced what I have, where it happens over and over and over again, and you can't discount the divine anymore. And there's so many experiences in my life that I've had like that. And Druid is not really a common word that we see everywhere just on buildings in this day and age. So focusing on yourself is going to lead you to the answers, and I'm being led down the path of researching the Druids, but I know that it's not only going to be the Druids. There is so much information on just who they were alone to look through, but then you've got the Egyptians, you've got the Hindus, you've got all the ancient teachings to look into. And one thing they all have in common is they revere the earth. Many of them, as well as within practices, are earth-based practices. And we have been disconnected from the earth, therefore disconnected from a key part of our divine selves, because I believe the Divine Father is spirit, Mother Earth is physical. You need both combined, divine feminine and divine masculine. And as you just learn who you are learning about everything, because the pathway opens up to you. And this is what's happened to me. I believe I've fully deprogrammed myself from that fear of not being able to represent the two. And in deprogramming myself, I found so many answers that I had questions to. And it's going to be becoming a lot more of that focus on my channel. I'm still going to be talking about my own spiritual experiences and channelings that I have, but it's going to be a lot more of a focus of who were the wise men and wise women. And I've decided to change my title from the monarch witch to the monarch wise woman, because I don't want to be using the title that was demonizing these people anymore, because I believe some of them could have been doing evil things. You can't discount that. Like, usually not all of one group is good or bad, but many of them, I believe, were closer to Jesus Christ than the Roman religion. So I hope that this video has helped you realize to look within, to ask the question, who am I? And I hope this helps you gain answers on your spiritual journey, your own unique path as well. So thank you so much for tuning into this video, and have a lovely day or night wherever you are.